Okay, we're ready to begin this hard work that we have today of saying goodbye to Milton Sherman and laying him to rest. We begin with military honors.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we render military honors. We ask you bring a plain of caps. Please stand if you are able, and place your right hand over your heart. If you are a veteran or currently serving, you may render a hand salute. As they get put into the caps, you may release, and you may take your seat. Thank you.
we begin our service this morning with the ritual of Kriya. In a minute, Ron, you're going to receive a little ribbon that you can wear, or if you don't want to. And after we say the following words that remind us of this life and this grieving that we are doing, you'll tear your ribbon just a little bit, just a quarter of an inch there, don't forget. And we do this for a couple of reasons. You've heard them before. The first is because you're grieving, and it helps sometimes to do something physical with that grief. The second reason is because this is absolutely a tear in the fabric of your family, and we know that and acknowledge that. And the third is because this changes your status from someone who is been tasked with organizing and arranging a funeral and making sure that your dad was cared for and all of these pieces of what it meant to take care of someone who was not only elderly but at the end very sick. And now all of the details are done. He's here, he's safe. We are going to lay him to rest. And so you can dispense with all of those logistics and just be a mourner with grief. And so repeat after me. We say Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Nevarah. I mean, God gives and God takes away. Blessed is the name of God. And now you can go ahead and just give it a little prayer. And you say Baruch, Dayan, Ha'emet. Praise are you, Adonai, the judge of truth. And so we begin by preparing ourselves for this hard work that we are going to do by putting ourselves in a place where we're ready to say goodbye and to do the hard work of grieving together. And so I thought we would start actually with Psalm 121, which is a psalm for it talks about how God helps us, and it talks about how we're never alone because God is with us, and that even when we can't remember, we turn our eyes to the mountains. And for a guy who came to Denver and never left and appreciated the value of not being alone, I think this is a beautiful song to start with. You're the ma'alot, asa'enai harim me'ayin yago Ezri na'im Adonai, ose shamayim va'aretz. Ayitem lama raglacha, ayanim shamracha. Hine lo yanim velo yisam, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shamracha, Adonai silcha, ayad yaminacha. Yomam Hashemesh lo yitecha, v'yarech balayla. Adonai yishmarcha mitzvah, yishmer et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedakah u'berecha, me'ata ve'ad olam. A song for ascent. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. He, the guardian of Israel, neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and your coming, now and forever. And this poem, especially in a beautiful place like this, is sort of cut out of the city and is a place of peace where we come to be with our loved ones, where the seasons change, regardless of whether we're ready for them to or not. We think about coming back to this place to be with Milton. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we remember him. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we're lost and we're sick at heart, we remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us. as we remember him. And finally, you say the words of Psalm 23, which have the famous line, "When I walk in the valley of the shadow of death." And I was taught this beautiful interpretation that it's not the deceased or our loved ones that walk in that valley, it's us. When we grieve and when we mourn and when we are saying goodbye to someone we love, we live in that shadow of death and we stay in that valley. But I think, like Milt would have appreciated, we are there together. You are there together. You're not alone in that valley, and you won't be there forever. מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לו אפשר, בינו דשא ירביצני, עמי מנוחו ינהלני, נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא פלמוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. Yitaka umishantaka hema yanachamuni. Taros lefanai shofan neged zorai. Yishanta b'shemen roshi tosi levaya. Achto v'chesed yirdefuni kol yamei chayai. V'shavti b'beit Adonai le'orech yamim. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. And even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and you have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. We're taught that we are obligated to tell the story of someone's life. That when they die, it is only then that we really can see the story, that we really can understand what their life meant and what it had to teach us. There's a poem that's beautiful about on all of these gravestones, there's a dash in between the first date, the date of birth, and the last date, the date of death. And that dash holds the entirety of their life. And it's such a small symbol, and yet it holds so much. And our job as mourners today is to tell that story, to talk of that death. And so I want to begin by telling you a story that's told about the people of Rome, who spoke of the great artist Michelangelo as a man who had four souls, because he excelled in architecture and in sculpture and in painting and in poetry. And it was his skill and vision that had produced so many of the city's beautiful buildings and statues and pieces of art. And at the end of his life, when Michelangelo was on his deathbed, his friends gathered beside him at his bedside, and they were devastated at the idea of a world without him. And one friend cried out, "Michelangelo, how will Rome ever get along without you?" And with a weak wave of his hand toward the open window next to his bed and the entire city beyond, a city that was filled with his creations, Michelangelo answered, "Rome will never be without me, and we will never be without smoke." His presence in this world was more colorful than 1,000 of his own paintings. His strength and resilience made him larger than the tallest building we could build. Like Michelangelo's four souls represent his influence in so many parts of Rome, Milton, Sherman also, I think, had a number of souls, and they leave us today a beautiful legacy to carry with us as we say goodbye. Milt was born on January 1st, 1930 in the West Bronx to Russian immigrants, as I learned on his parents' dining room table. The story goes that as Milt was the youngest of five, the older four being girls, his father was so excited to have a boy that he went running, yelling out into the streets. But Milt's childhood was anything but easy. When his mother took ill when he was a baby, she went to live in a sanatorium, and his father could not raise all five children. So the youngest three lived at a Jewish orphanage before staying in a series of foster homes, many of which were not great places to live. His first good home was when he lived with the Osterweil family when he was a teenager. And when he turned 18, Milt joined the army. It was his first family. And when he was given an honorable discharge a few years later, he went right back into the military, this time with the Air Force. And when he got stationed at Lowry Air Force Base here in Colorado, he met his beloved wife, Dolores. Milt and Dolores got married in 1955 and were married for 64 years. And her family became his family. Milt worked as a meter reader for the Public Service Company for more than 30 years, along with other part-time jobs and many other responsibilities. It wasn't easy. After a dog bite count of more than 45 and many hard experiences of anti-Semitism inside and outside of his company, he finally retired with medical disability. And when he retired, Milt discovered that he was an artist at heart. He began to paint flowers and had such latent talent that even he surprised himself. He won awards in art shows and had really developed something special. And yet, he never wanted to sell his art. He preferred to gift it. Eventually, the art became physically difficult for him as he aged, and toward the end of his life, Milt spent most of his time focusing on the people he loved. He made friends with everyone, and his relationships were of the utmost importance to him. This summary of such a full and beautiful life is just that, a summary. It's a snapshot of a husband, father, grandfather, an uncle, a friend. And yet, from here, I think we can get an idea of Milt's four souls, those souls that he is leaving us today as his legacy. I think Milt's first soul is his art. So much of the life he enjoyed, painting and calligraphy and cooking, was rooted in his creative mind. For a person who was fairly type A, that creative outlet, one he was so surprisingly good at, was a good balance and perhaps a good equalizer. And I think and I hope that it also provided him with calm and peace when he was doing it. Milt's second soul is the lesson to find the joy in life. I remember and feel so lucky to have sat in my office with Milt and with you guys, watching him laugh while tears ran down his face as he told me story after story about his 64 years of marriage with Dolores. Milt, even through his struggle and hardship, found enormous joy. He had hobbies he loved, swimming and bowling and fishing and gambling and playing cards and playing poker, and all of these were rooted in people, in friendship, and in family. They were about the people participating more than the competition. And when Eric would come to the house one day a week when he was little, Milt found so much joy in taking care of him. He loved to teach him to play games, got him hooked way too early on Coca-Cola, and taught him how to curse in Yiddish. There was no responsibility or hobby that didn't come with the capacity for joy and fun. I think Milt's third soul is rooted in resilience. Milt had to grow up faster than he should have. He learned how to get by, how to survive. He was resourceful and hardworking. The stories I got to hear from Milt himself last year when we buried his beloved Dolores right here, he told those stories to me because they were funny, but I'm not sure that even he knew just how inspiring they were. When Milt and Dolores first got together, Milt couldn't afford to come all the way to the west side of Denver from Lowry to see Dolores, so he went. He thought this was hilarious. I think it's beautiful and romantic, and it shows just how he did whatever needed to be done. So Milt also talked about taking care of Ron when he was just a little guy. Dolores was really sick for a while, and so Milt worked as a meter reader, and he worked at the racetrack, and he helped his father-in-law run Morris Circus, and he took care of Ron. It wasn't without stress, so much stress that he had ulcers and his stomach was a mess. And yet, he just did it. He did what had to be done. And so we learned from him about the power of determination and resilience. And finally, and perhaps most important, Milt's fourth and final soul, and the truly magnificent gift that he shared with us, is the importance of family. Because Milt didn't grow up as a part of one, he spent his entire adult life seeking and creating close family ties for himself and for those around him. And because of this, his connection to his beloved wife Dolores, to her family, to his daughter-in-law, to his grandson, to his siblings and their children, and discovered later in life, his cousins, or his nieces and nephews, Ron's cousins, his friends, The volunteers that he met with Meals on Wheels, his connection with his friends, with his new friend Lillian. Those connections defined for him a big and loving and unconventional family. And throughout, he taught us the importance of relationships, of support, of protection, and of love. Ron's first instinct in describing his father was to say, protective. Milt didn't grow up with someone to look out for him, so he made sure that Ron and then Eric knew that they were never alone. They never had to deal with the world on their own. He took pride in the accomplishments of his family, he stood up for them, and he shared with them and the rest of his family the joys of the lessons he had learned. When Milt and Nancy reconnected in the 90s, his niece, they began sharing recipes and their love of cooking as a way to bond, and also to pass down information from one generation to another. Milt found and made community in so many places. Through Temple Emmanuel, where he reconnected with Rabbi Stone from his early days in the orphanage in New York, and where he volunteered for many hours later in his life. Through his involvement in the Masons, through the military and the families he made there, through the couples he and Dolores were close with, and through the family that he brought together, and that he inspired Ron and Nancy and Alan to bring together. Milt created for himself and his family a loving and beautiful network. And though in keeping with the many tragedies of 2020, Milt died without his beloved family by his bedside, I think he knew that he was surrounded by you and by your love and your gratitude for the souls and the gifts that he brought throughout his long life. And so, instead of looking out at the window at the beauty of Rome from Michelangelo's deathbed, I get to look out at you, at Milt's son and grandson, at all of his family and friends that are with us from afar. And in you and through you, I see the legacy that Milt has passed down. I hope you find strength in the pride that I know Milt felt for what he and you have built together, for his beautiful family and his beautiful life. And much like Rome was and is evidence of Michelangelo's art, your lives are the evidence of the life of Milton Sherman, of his resilience and his strength and his legacy that he has passed to you.
For those who may not be familiar with the Masonic fraternity or its ceremonies, we'd like to explain that this service, or one very similar to it, has been given in most countries of the world, and for many years, indeed many decades. It is totally non-sectarian and is intended strictly to be a tribute to the Brother Mason. We consider this to be an opportunity to show our regard for a man who not only made an effort to better his own life, but also that of those around him through membership in Masonry, thereby committing himself to practice the virtue and principles of fraternity.
From time immemorial, it has been the usage among the fraternity of ancient, free, and accepted Masons, by the request and desire of a brother while living, to assemble in due form upon the occasion of his death, and there, by the ancient and significant observances of the craft, render honor to his character, and offer to his memory before the world the final tribute of affection and esteem, and signalize the earnest belief and hope of a Mason that he shall live again. In conformity with this usage, and by the desire of our departed brother, whose memory we cherish and whose loss we deplore, we have this day assembled to pay honor to the character and memory of our departed brother in due and ancient form. As Masons, we are taught that no man should enter upon any great or important endeavor without first invoking the blessing of deity. Brother Chaplain?
Most glorious God, giver of all blessings and giver of all mercy, pour down thy blessings upon us and strengthen our solemn engagements with the ties of sincere affection. And may the present instance of mortality draw our attention towards thee, the only refuge in time of need. That when the final moment shall arrive, when we shall be about to depart this transitory scene, the enlivening prospect of thy mercy may dispel the gloom of death. And when we have departed hence, in mercy and in thy favor, may we enter into thine everlasting kingdom, there to enjoy, in union with our departed friends, the just rewards of a pious and virtuous life. Amen.
So mote it be. While we shed a tear in memory of our departed, let us bear in mind that this is not the time or place for hopeless grief or heartless indifference, nor yet for us by sounding adulations to magnify our own worthiness or inspire applause. But let justice and charity forbid us to withhold from a brother's memory the unreckoned acts of charity and beneficence towards us and others who dwelt more closely with him, that they may be garnered in our hearts through the coming years. His spirit is sent to God who gave it. His memory we cherish in our hearts. His body we consign to the earth. This lambskin, or white leather apron, is an emblem of innocence and the badge of a Mason. By this we are reminded of the purity of life and conduct which is essentially necessary to gaining admission into the celestial lodge above, over which the supreme architect of the universe presides. This emblem I now retire in honor of our departed brother. By this act, we are reminded that through the beneficent ministry of death, our brother has reached the end of his earthly labors, and his account now rests with his Creator. Brother Secretary, you'll read the memorial roll.
Scroll in memory of Brother Milton Sherman. Once again, Brother Mason, having completed the designs laid down upon life's trestle board, has answered the last summons of the Grand Warden of Heaven and entered into that celestial lodge above, over which the Supreme Architect of the universe presides. Though our beloved and respected brothers has passed through the portals of eternity, his memory remains to inspire us to live respected and die regretted. Twilight and evening fell, and after that the dark. And may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. Masonic record, Brother Milt was born January 1st, 1930. Initiated and entered apprentice May 5th, 1956. Passed to the degree of fellowcraft September 21, 1956. November 30, 1956. And died December 27, 2020. As a mark of respect to the memory of our departed brother, and as a token of sympathy with his family and friends, it is ordered that this memorial be filed in the archives of Highlands Lodge number 86, ancient, free, and accepted Mason, and a copy sent to his bereaved relatives. Signed, Jim Marshall, Secretary. Terrence Bartell, First Commander.
This evergreen is an emblem of our faith in the immortality of the soul. By this, we are reminded of our destiny beyond this world of mortal life, and that we have within us an immortal part that can never, though never, die. To his near relatives and dear friends, deeply heart-stricken than any others by this loss, which we all have sustained, we can only sincerely tender our most sympathetic affection in this your bereavement, commending you to his unwasting fullness of mercy. He who has brought us hither, whose strength will uphold us evermore. Earth to earth. Ashes to ashes.
Dust to dust.
The will of God is accomplished. So mote it be. This concludes the Masonic funeral service.
Thank you. We continue by preparing ourselves for the lowering of Milton's remains into his final resting place. Adonai Natan, Adonai Vata, Kivisa, Adonai Nivora, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar etchem b'turo, v'hehit etchem b'adin, v'nata b'tokechem chayei olam, Baruch Ata Adonai Dayan ha'amen. Ron and Eric, as you remember, we arrive now at the hardest part of our ceremony for so many, which is that we participate in the filling of Milk's grave with earth. It is physically hard to do. It is physically devastating to participate in, and yet it is one of the most beautiful things that we can give to Milk because we can't say thank you for it. And we know that we're doing our part to make sure that he is truly resting in peace here. And so I'm going to invite you to take a shovel and start to fill the grave, and then the guys will help. And one of the traditions that we have is that our first shovel fill we do with the back of the shovel because it's really hard to shovel with the back of a shovel, and so too this is hard emotionally and physically on us to participate in this. We'll take a moment while you do. standing for the memorial prayer. Al Malirachamim Shochem Bamromim Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Hamsei Hashina Shim Kedoshim Tehorim Zohar Harati Nazirim at Nishman Mato Ben Binyamin Shahalach Leolamo Kol Harachamim Yasirehu V'Setet Nafav Leolamim Vayitro B'Tor Achayim at Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato Ve'anu After Shalom Al Mishkavo V'Nomar Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold Milton, Sherman, Mato Ben Benjamin close to you forever, so that his soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May he find a home with you, and may he rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. And our final words today are the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma, Yivrach, Yirutei, Yamlich, Malchutei, B'chayochon, U'yamechon, U'chayei, B'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, U'bizman Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Yehi, Shmei Rabbah, Mevorach, Le'olam, U'le'amei Amaya. Yitbarach, V'yishabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitamam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalel, Shnei V'kudusha V'yisu, Le'ela Yimko, V'yafata V'shirata, Tushvahata V'nechamata, Dahamiran Le'alma V'yimru, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mama, Huya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru, Amen. May the one who makes peace make peace for us, for all of Israel, and we say together, Amen. Go your way, for God has called you. Go your way, and may God be with you. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God precede you. And we say to you our words that we say to our mourners,